Twilight Garage podcast is brought to you by The Red Onion, the Bay Area's finest hamburgers, located at 11900 San Pablo Avenue in El Chorrito. Tell them Twilight Garage sent you.
Twilight Dolls. Thank you again, as always, for spending the currency of your life with us here. May God be praised. May we all find what we're looking for and enjoy this weird diversion that we have. Sounds pretty gruesome. Sounds kind of crazy. What are your hobbies? What are your interests? Let me tell you, it all centers around one of the most gruesome slaughters ever recorded in American justice. Okay. So, yeah, I don't usually polite company bring this shit up, but pretty crazy to sit here and obsess over it. To drag people into it. Our 200 plus subscribers. Like, rock and roll. We love you guys. Like, I just am so positively, I'm tickled. We're moving along. We've had Linda Kasabian's guilty fucking ass over here holding down one of the most glamorous. Dude, you look at the cuts and the curves that were Sharon Tate. She was a little beyond Twiggy in her figure and her stance. Not a lot. But you think about the women that came behind her, and that was the kind of, she set this look. It was a real iconic thing, and she never really got to enjoy that glamour and the payback of, what kind of her personality seemed to have, I thought, been fictionalized really nicely in the Tarantino film. But this poor girl's being held down by this vicious, creepy broad and these other accomplices, and she's being murdered in this living room as we left off. And she came from what is generally regarded to as a rather fairy book portion of our country, New Hampshire.
Linda Kasabian.
Yeah, and she was pretty young. She was really in a committed relationship with child. So she's married, has a child at a pretty young age. And she's out here still being irresponsible, risking her child, throwing her relationships in the wind, chasing charismatic people allegedly,
trifling,
nilly-willy, and stealing. I mean, if that story is true, that's pretty heavy duty what she did. Now, that is the subtext of Miss Kasabian. Now, I've always wondered, Casey, about that migration. Do you know much about that?
Yeah, so Linda was married to Bob Kasabian. Like he said, they lived in New Hampshire. They eventually found their way to a commune that was in a real poor area of Boston called the Fort Hill community, which was led by a really interesting gentleman named Mel Lyman. Now, Mel Lyman, his history was as I guess he was traveling as a folk singer and harmonica guy. And
no, he's got a discography. It's
it's really
weird when you see that he's the same person.
Yeah, the very talented harmonica player. And but Mel Lyman was like an anti-hippie. He was somebody that was into like transcendentalism and it actually was pretty much for a long time against drugs. He told his girlfriend at the time, stay away from drugs. He was very against the hippies. He didn't like the vibe or, anything, but his girlfriend experimented with some LSD and it had like a really bad trip and it freaked her out. She moved back home to the Midwest, and that breakup and losing her from his life really kind of spun him out.
The big love of his life, wasn't it? And didn't years later, she was like the rosebud. That was the thing that kept echoing. I guess like anytime he would be I guess seemingly free of his normal conscious mind. Her name, her spirit, the relationship would come out of him. Is that's kind of
and also in that way, kind of reminded me of Charlie Manson, that he had a similar type thing with this girl, Mary Jo Vitale, back in the late 50s, right? She had gotten pregnant. She was from Detroit. She had complications during her pregnancy. Her dad came out, basically took her home, and told Charlie, stay away from her. Well, from talking to like John Michael Jones and others, he was asking even into his 80s about, hey, can you look up and find out where she's at? We're talking 60 years after he had last seen her, you know.
That's the power of being young and having those emotional bonds. And I think that's how these women and people naturally felt towards a Charlie. It could have been Charles Manson or other people, but in this case, it was the very socially brilliant Charles Manson. I don't think
so. Mel Lyman had this like dynamic personality, really started this commune. I think his interests, his motives were to basically kind of bring these people in and gather their money. They believed in this shared, property aspect. And eventually it developed into basically a cult. And now
what year do you think that happened? Because he's famously quoted by the non-actor lead, Mark what's his ass from his, the big film Zabriskie Point.
Yes, you're right.
That wasn't a very big film, but in the moment it was culturally something. And you go on the Dick Cavett show and that interview with the character Mark, and that guy was a really violent dude.
Yeah.
He wound up doing some stuff. We can get into that later if it comes back up. I don't want to digress too far, but the oft quoted quote that comes up in that interview is, we are a community that's devoted to the service of Mel Lyman.
Yes.
And that was 70, early 70s, in like 73 maybe.
He established the Fort Hill commune back in 66.
Okay.
Yeah. And so this is when Linda and Bob kind of got involved. And then it expanded into five cities. He had a commune in San Francisco, LA.
Classic spots.
I think one in Mexico even. As Dana from Rotting Jewels likes to say, the way that the CIA oftentimes masquerades themselves is through cults, right? So some people believe that the Lyman cult may have been associated with the CIA, and allegedly there's still Lyman followers in this cult somewhere here in the Bay Area to this day.
Oh, I would assume so, because you think about the depth it rooted itself, and the multi-generational, kind of values that can be passed on. They weren't so radical that they didn't make sense. They were actually just pretty old school East Coast values when you read them. Violent dude. I heard some things about the New Mexico branch that happened in the 70s. And
they robbed a bank as well.
There was a lot of that going on from these kind of socio extremist groups that get called cults. And as Sam Smith pointed out the last time we had him on the episode, which I think was a very salient point, and I think needs to be noted and always thought of when we have these conversations, to lend credence to some of these things that seem overtly conspiratorial, but you see that the cult business is an easy thing to farm out. There's always somebody who's ready to step up and be a neo messiah, collect some, as they say in the rap game, dividends, right? And then if they can, get a little taste of some sort of intoxicant that they like, then that usually leads to some sort of promiscuity, right? Some sort of deviance sexually. Either you do a David Koresh and you're like, fellas, I know you've been married to these broads a long fucking time and love you guys, Jesus Christ. but they're all going to have sex with me and
Yeah.
not you.
I do think there's a clear delineation between the Mel Lyman's community and Charlie's community,
Okay.
because one, I believe that Charlie had an eschatology that was developed, or he basically parroted from these other sources, right? We've talked about before.
An
Fountain of the
assemblage.
world. Yeah.
Eschatology is an assemblage
The end times.
of ideals that becomes a person's driving raison d'etre. So
Yeah,
it's just kind of
specifically, it's the end times theology, right? Now, I don't see any developed theology in the Manson family, right? Whereas in Lyman's community, Lyman claimed to be a alien version of Jesus Christ, and actually wanted to take his followers, told them in 1974 the world's going to come to an end, but we're going to be taken to the planet Venus. We're going to re-inhabit another planet,
And
which
when
kind of reminded me of Heaven's Gate.
exactly. And then when it didn't happen, instead of everybody killing them, instead of everyone self-harming
Yeah,
in their Nike Cortezes, right?
yeah.
Black Cortezes, that was so thugged up. So
Alan.
the Heaven's Gate community, as we all know, ended themselves when it seemed like a frustrated situation, and they used the Hale Bop comet as the vehicle to get the thing rolling. But I find it very interesting that these things weren't enacted on, for what reason? Could you tell? This is so funny, brother. If you could.
Yeah, so I think both of these cases with
Because didn't he say that the reason why it didn't happen though is because that was his whack followers, not like in here. We'd be in Venus right now, bro. If it wasn't for you, dude, you weren't doing nothing, bro. I asked you to clean out the laundry room, dude, to squawk out the hallway, bro. What did you do? You spiritually tethered us to the old world, so we're not on Venus. We got to reset the clock, brother. Like, I was reading into that.
Yeah.
Because I'd first really learned about these guys visiting Lynn one time. She was on Benton Road. We're out in the country. It was like a beautiful night. We're talking. And I had screwed up and left my charger there. But I'd had such a good night. I'm driving back to my hotel. And I'm like, you know what? It's cool. Fuck it. You know, I'll just fly out. I'll get another charger. It's fine. It just was such a beautiful note when I left. Well, I get the call. And Lynn has my charger. So I flip back around. But I don't want to mess up the moment. You know what I mean? Like, I was really walking on sunshine. I got to, lay a smooch, and I was feeling good about myself. So then she lays a copy of Zabriskie Point on me. She's like, I'm sorry. I meant to give this to you earlier. I'm glad you came back. And we almost forgot the charger a second time. She's explaining the lay of the land.
Explain to the people, though. They probably don't know how it relates to Ridgecrest and in the desert,
Zabriskie Point is an actual place in Death Valley.
Yeah.
It was the title of a film in the early 70s. It was really, I think, very dominated by the Mel Lyman community. I don't know if they took it over. I don't know if that was secretly part of their agenda.
Definitely some of their members were in it for sure.
And they used it as a big vehicle. The main star, Mark, this non-actor with these weird teeth, who was apparently very violent, came to a rough end. Daria, the main actress, who was this stunning natural beauty. Her story is very fascinating because she came from a very storied American dance family who pioneered a lot of these lifestyles, a lot of these very bohemian ways of living as true dance mavens, and just their whole life became dance. And they were instructors and had a beautiful home that was a giant deck with trees growing through it and the whole thing. And Daria wound up ascending to that throne after she'd kind of abandoned her world of dance and her big social background that she was a part of. It was a very storied New York dance family that you can research.
Now what I understand with Linda, she was long gone before they got into any of the Mel Lyman's eschatology or end times type stuff. You know, it wasn't really a cult, I think, at the time that Bob and Linda were there. But Linda's made comments about the romanticism of being a part of such a commune and loving the community, right? So this is what drew her to the snake pit and what Charlie Melton was doing down there. It's what drew her to via Catherine Scher being invited into Spawn Ranch in the commune on July 4th.
That makes a lot of sense, because if we read into Linda's later life, Jesus and the proclamation of her adherence, especially to tracts in the New Testament, would buttress a lot of the claims that are made about her seeking out these messianic and especially Christian-based gentlemen who had these, like I say, messianic personalities. And Charlie Melton, as we have said many times on this program, extremely under-researched, extremely, I think, underrated in his charisma, in his actions, in his message. And I think it was very Christ-based. I think it was very traditional, love your brother. I think it was very of its time. I caught the tail end of that in Ridgecrest, which, like you were saying, was part of Zabriskie Point.
Yeah.
The eschatology of all that, doomsday cult situation, because it was not far from my home, less than an hour from my house. And then later I heard that Lynn was invited, among other people, to be a part of the community there in New Mexico. And it was harrowing what she told me. I don't want to repeat it because it was a private conversation.
Yeah.
Until it was properly told by herself, I wouldn't want to pass it on. But it was verified by all these different people. If we look at these cultural icons throughout time, these benchmarks and landmarks of their interviews.
Now, I'm guessing this is sometime right after the trial. Is this before
It's in
Stockton?
the early 70s, before Stockton.
Yeah.
And it's like they were trying to have these homegrown terrorist, anti-American establishment people who would bring excitement or attention into their, it's like a feather in their cap. That was the take I was starting to maybe get from Lynn. But then my question immediately became, having been around the white power movement and researching that for various reasons on my own over the years, hey, that sounds like the breeding ground of some agents provocateur, maybe, of the federal government who want to recruit impressionable, excitable people to keep themselves in business. Because if there's no terrorist groups, then you can't have an anti-terrorist organization, right?
Yeah. That always brings me back to what Timothy Leary said later, right? He said that the CIA created the countercultural movement and also it killed it, ended it. Yeah.
And they have to reinvent it every now and again.
Yeah.
They propagate this excited hatred so they can keep the excitement. And when they need some division, they can just go to it. Like we're experiencing a lot of that currently. It's just people are being crafty as they've always been with the media. I think retrospectively, a lot of the things we're experiencing now are going to be mocked and laughed at. We're going to be thought of as rubes and fools for falling for it because, hey, you people of the future are going to understand the media that was our time and our experience in a way that we don't. Because it's all sophisticated and we're a part of it, right? So retrospectively, we're able to look back at these cute, quaint times of HELTER SKELTER.
You know what tripped me out is while I was studying Kasabian's past in Mel Lyman's community.
Please.
I came across a woman named Genevieve Turner.
Yes.
You know, are you familiar with her?
Please. Now this, folks, is Twilight Garage.
So she was born into the community, right? 1968. and she happened to be the writer of American Psycho,
Yes.
the Gavin Newsom story. No, just kidding.
Dude, the hairstyle. The
No,
whole
no.
thing, his way of doing business. I love it. I love
But
it.
she was also the writer for a movie that we're familiar with, Charlie Says.
Charlie Says. She was such a jealous beezy. Look what she did to Leslie. Do you believe what they did to her?
Yeah, oh,
Made her
dirty.
like, you are
dirty.
so fat and stupid. And then ugly ass Susan is like, hey, I think I'm sunshine and all of a sudden real smart. Look at my teeth.
Yeah,
Blink, blink. And then Pat's just like, bro,
it's a horrible movie.
it's so
I'm
right.
sorry. Like,
Just-
it's horrible. Don't waste your time with it.
don't
Genevieve
dignify it.
Turner is a man-hating carpet eater. That
Rug muncher.
I'm sorry to go like
Rug
really,
muncher.
but no, she's a serious feminist.
Really hates penises.
Hates men.
And I heard from a reliable source that was the wedge that got driven between Leslie and everybody else.
Mhm.
And if you listen to our dear friend, Mr. Michael Channels on his
Yes.
back porch tapes, excellent videos. Don't always love the shit he says, but he brought that up in one of his letters, which is hopefully something he can share some of his
Mhm.
collection at some point.
Yep.
He read it. If you haven't seen it, do a search on back porch tapes, Michael Channels.
It's basically Leslie's
72-ish.
diary, right?
Yeah, she
Leslie's-
was writing so much. And
Mhm.
it really, to me, has become part of me trying to have a coda
Mm.
to understand the words of Charles Manson in a
Yep.
way that's attractive so that I can understand where's the beef
Mhm.
in this case. People always wonder what, they don't ask it. You can't articulate it.
Mhm.
What was Charles Manson selling that these ladies had to have? And that's what I'm trying
Yeah.
to decipher. And those letters that Michael Channels gifted us with are amazing. That's a great insight. And
I
then
bring
this
up-
woman came.
Yeah, I bring up Genevieve because she was already successful, right? She had written these 2 movies. Before it even came out, she eventually wrote this article for the New Yorker where she explained her whole history of growing up in this cult, right? She said that when she was 18 years old, about to go away to college, that she was considering going back to the cult. But I think that she left when she was around 10 years old when her mom made the exit, right?
It's usually how it works.
Yeah. So she's relevant because I think that she's taking a lot of her past experience from this living in this cult and she's putting it on the Manson family women in Charlie Says.
I think
She's
that,
reflecting herself onto these women in this film.
I think that explains a lot. That's an incredible insight, Casey, because watching it, I couldn't understand who could corral such a budget, who could assume they were going to have such an audience, which I don't think they wound up having. It was just a total wash. It was very boring. Even the sensationalism and all the stuff that they got wrong, I don't think was worth the payoff. I think sometimes you got to jerk people around. You got to say shit like the devil and I'm here to do the, you know what I mean? Like you got to have a hook, but that thing didn't have any payoff.
Instead of using Charlie Says as your avatar, why don't you just come out with your own movie based upon your own an interesting story of the Mel Lyman community,
Thank you.
the cult?
Because that would be much too revealing and personal and
Yeah.
hurtful. And that would make you a Lisa Gallagher, nay, our friend,
Yes.
Allie. Dude, Allie, if you're watching
Dude,
this,
she's gonna be fucking pissed that you just said her real name.
dude, Lisa Gallagher, it's Allegra Lansing. If you know anything about, I put that together. I just saw her name and I was like, this is very,
Dude, we're so in trouble.
it looks like it belongs on a monument. What is this? And I started doing I smoked some weed and I did a little scramble, like word scramble, because my mother was very intelligent. And then apparently I was more smart than her. We went to Mensa when I was like 9.
Yes.
Scared everybody.
Yes.
So I just lurk at any word puzzle and I know what it says. Lisa Gallagher. Lady, you burned your bridges. Stay away from Charlie. Quit trying to figure out what the girls are thinking. What became of the lost girls of the Manson cult? Stop projecting. Everybody, knock it off. The story doesn't need any spice.
You're right.
Nicholas
That's right.
Shrek, come on here and explain yourself. We gotta go though.
We got
Seriously,
go.
producer Alex has a life. I don't know how we're not gonna find.
Dude, we freaking love this guy, Alex.
Oh, he's the
man. He's the best. Yeah.
We're finally gonna get to see him in our upcoming Patreon watch-a-thon. We're gonna finally show
Helter Skelter, man. We're going to go ahead and have that great monologue. And we're going to start introducing the voice that I like to use for the ridiculousness of the case of the Charlie alleged Manson murders.
So look at this film with us soon, and you'll know why we do that. Until then,
Twilighters. We love you.
we really do. This is just so much fun. Your
Yes.
indulgence, your patience, and your subscriptions and likes. Like, who knew? Kid, I'm going to throw some H. Allegro Hansing titty out there. Lisa Gallagher. Just send me a like and a follow. Give me something. How does she have all that? She must have made money off this. I'm going to get a Mr. X and start just making up shit. Anyway.
We love you.